Money you never spend is not money you saved. It is money wasted slowly, and it nearly cost me everything before I understood this. I was 12 years old the first time I made this mistake. I did not understand it was a mistake until I was 50, and by then the cost had already been paid. Sit, this one is not gentle, but it is true. Here is what people believe poverty teaches. Hold every coin like it is your last. Spend nothing. Guard everything. Fear is wisdom. I believed this for nearly 40 years, and I was wrong. Wrong in a way that hurt people I loved, not just myself. Poverty does not simply teach you to save. It teaches you that every coin carries a story. What it cost you in strength, in hours, in pieces of yourself. And if you guard it so tightly that it never becomes anything, you have not saved it at all. You have simply wasted it in a slower, quieter way. A way that does not look like waste from the outside, but is. I was 12 when my father fell ill, a fever that would not break, weeks of it, and no money for a proper doctor because every coin in our house had been buried, saved, hoarded against exactly this kind of disaster. Except when the disaster came, my mother would not touch it. I remember standing in the doorway listening to her argue with my aunt in whispers she thought I could not hear. My aunt said, "Spend it now, spend all of it if you must. A living husband is worth more than a full jar." My mother said, "And if we spend it and he dies anyway, what do we live on through the winter?" She waited 3 days before she spent a single coin on the doctor. 3 days while my father's fever climbed higher every night. He lived. I want you to know this before I continue. My father lived and recovered and lived many more years after that winter. But something in him changed after, something my mother never spoke of directly, though I understood it even as a girl. He grew quieter around her. Not angry. I never once heard him raise his voice about it, but quieter. As if some small piece of trust between them had waited 3 days too long, and never fully returned, even after his body did. My mother spent the rest of her life believing she had done the responsible thing, and in some way she had. We did not starve that winter, and the jar was not empty when spring came. But I watched as a girl the exact moment when careful became something closer to cruel. And I promised myself I would never make her mistake. I broke that promise almost immediately and in the smallest possible way, which is, I think, how most of us break our promises. An old man sold ribbons from a cart near the market the same year, not long after my father recovered. Red ribbon the kind girls wore on Sundays. I had a single coin in my pocket, earned from carrying water for a neighbour. I stood at that cart long enough that the man noticed me, and still I walked away with the coin unspent, telling myself this was wisdom, the same wisdom my mother had shown with the doctor. It was not wisdom. It was fear wearing wisdom's clothing, and I would not understand the difference for another 38 years. My husband had passed by then. My children were grown, in their own homes, living their own winters. I found a shawl in a shop, the exact colour of a dress my mother once owned, the same mother who waited 3 days by my father's bedside. I had money enough. I stood there perhaps 10 minutes, arguing with myself the way I had at 12, and then finally I bought it. I wore that shawl for years, and every single time I thought of my mother standing in that doorway and the ribbon cart. Only then did I understand. The coin was never meant only to be guarded. It was meant eventually to become something, even if that something was small, even if it was only a ribbon or a shawl or a doctor called one day sooner. If I could return to that doorway, I would not tell my mother she was foolish. She was frightened. I understand her more now than I ever did as a girl. But I would tell her this: the fever does not wait for you to finish counting. And I would tell that ribbon cart girl myself that walking away was not always wisdom. Sometimes it was simply fear, dressed carefully so it would not have to look at itself honestly. I am not telling you to spend everything recklessly without thought. This is not the lesson, and I do not want it heard wrong. My mother's caution kept us alive through many winters, and I do not dishonor that. But I am telling you that fear and wisdom wear very similar clothing, and it took my family 3 difficult days to learn how to tell them apart. Guard what you have, but do not let guarding become the only thing you know how to do with a coin, a moment, or a person you love. So today, if there is a small thing in front of you and you find yourself reaching for caution out of habit, pause just for a moment. Ask yourself honestly, is this carefulness, or is this only fear wearing carefulness like a coat? Old ways, real wisdom. I'll see you next time.